Look, one path, one person, one exit. Her day started with the phrase, "I'll just walk a little, everything is clear here." 2 hours later, she is gone. 2 days later, no trace. What would you do if a person was moving along a line that is not in the system? This is not a story about a missing person. This is a story where one small deviation changes everything. COCONINO National Forest, northern Arizona, March 2009. Amy Robertson is 29 years old and a participant in a temporary interpretive program with the Forest Service. Not a newbie to the field, but not a ranger either. 3 weeks in the park, before that a volunteer program in Utah. According to the wording on the application, willing to work on routes, but no overnight stays within 6 miles. Headquarters is at the eastern entrance. On the day of the incident, March 9th, she is on duty at the information center. The shift is short. After lunch, free time. A colleague on the shift, Jerry Topper, says, she said, "I'll go out for a walk. The route is not difficult. Along the line of rocks, there's a path an hour and back. I left my backpack and went in a thermal jacket and a headlamp." The parking lot cameras show that at 2:46 p.m., Amy leaves for the Old Contour Trail, an abandoned route that used to connect 2 viewpoints. It is no longer officially maintained. The markings have been removed. The trodden part is overgrown, but the line itself is partially legible, according to old maps. She doesn't take the GPS tracker. According to internal protocol, volunteers are not required to take it unless they go to Zone B. But 3.5 hours later, she's still not there. At 6:27 p.m., Jerry notes, the sun is setting and she hasn't returned. 40 minutes later, a ranger is called. The standard procedure begins: track, signals, calls. At 10 p.m., the first alarming detail is registered. On the route map at the information center, where the exits are marked, the signature 2P appears in the corner where no one is supposed to write. The letters are written with a marker. Neither Amy nor any other employees touched the map that day. It turns out later that 2P is an abbreviation that was used until 2003 to designate the second pass to the observation point along the old route, which was taken out of service after a collapse on the eastern section. But in 2009, this reduction is no longer applied, and access to this area is prohibited. Amy disappears. No tent, no water, no track. On a day when I just wanted to go out for an hour, along a path that no longer exists. According to protocol, in the event of a volunteer going missing without GPS and feedback, the first inspection zone is within 3 miles of the last known position. For Amy, this is the start of an old route, now closed, but still visible on the terrain. A partially discernible clearing, old stones, and in some places, faded remains of markings. Early in the morning, 15 hours after the disappearance, 2 officers head to the area. 2.5 hours later, they find the first confirmation: a shoe print, a woman's footprint, size 6. The sole matches her sneakers. The trail leads along the old line, towards the northeastern slope. But after 400 yards, a surprise. On a rock near the turn, chalked the number 2 and the letter P. Fresh. No mud, no traces of rain. The letters are clear, as if they were left several hours before. Senior Group Officer Carl Bailey confirms this abbreviation, 2P, was previously used for the second pass to the rock point. This line was on paper maps until 2002. Now, it is neither on paper nor in the system. She should not have had access to this information. That is, either she was walking from memory, which is impossible because Amy arrived at this park for the first time 2 weeks ago, or she had an old-style card. But the cards are issued centrally. Hers was up to date. Question: where did the mark come from? And most importantly, who made it? Further on, the route ends. A sharp drop in altitude, a collapsed section, no longer a path, but a chaotic slope. But 500 yards down the road is the old line's filling well, a metal pipe with cement residue, and next to it, a piece of paper wrapped around a branch. It turned out to be a fragment of a map, a field sheet from a laminated set not published after 2003. On it, there is a thick line going around, with a note in pencil. If you're tired, go down 2P. This fragment was dry. The paper was not soaked. Apparently, it was left no more than a day ago. Problem: such maps have been archived, and nothing has disappeared from the headquarters base. Later, one of the route experts would confirm Route 2P no longer exists, not only on paper. In some places, it is physically inaccessible. It was washed away. And on the old slope, it is dangerous to be even in clear weather. But Amy went there, or from memory which should not exist, or according to a sign that no one put up. On the third day after the disappearance, the zone was expanded. Now, the search was conducted not only along the old 2P, but also along the lower slope, where there used to be a clearing for emergency transport. No one had walked there for a long time. The soil was loose, and the bushes had covered the former tracks. By all calculations, a person without equipment, without water, and without navigation could not have walked there more than 1.5 miles. But on the morning of March 13th, 4 days after Amy had left, one of the search parties spotted her first. She was walking along an old fire corridor toward Highway 89A, clinging to the side of the road. She was walking steadily, but slowly. She was still wearing the same clothes. There was no visible damage. When she was stopped, she didn't react at first. Then she said, "I knew I was going down. It was just a long way. The route was on the right the whole time." According to the first medical assessment, there is moderate dehydration, hypothermia, severe fatigue, but no frostbite or bruises. In the backpack, 1 bottle of water, almost empty, a compass, a knife, and a map fragment folded in half. And one strange detail: on her neck is a paper label from a map torn off with the marking USFS 2P 2000 edition. Such were withdrawn from circulation back in 2005. When asked where she got this fragment from, she replied, I found it in the clearing. There were two. I left one. I took one. But none of the rescuers found the second specimen. The GPS determined its supposed route. It does not correspond to any of the known tracks. It starts along the old 2P, then deviates to the northeast, crosses a line of hills, passes next to a ravine without bridges, and only then comes out onto an old dirt road. The total length is about 22 miles. The official map lists this section as impassable. Amy herself says, "I was just following the line. It was there. I thought I was lost, but the line was there all along. It just wasn't going in the right direction." One of the officers involved in the operation said, "We found her in a different place than where we were looking, and she herself couldn't explain how she knew the route. In fact, she survived by following a trail that had long since disappeared." When asked what she remembered from the first night, Amy replied, "I saw a marker, a black one. I thought it was for us, but it was gone in the morning. There are no markers installed in that area, neither new nor old." When experts began to reconstruct Amy Robertson's possible route, the key question was not how she survived, but where exactly she went. Based on footprints, satellite images, and terrain analysis, her track, reconstructed from her movements and readings, looked like a logical line, if it had been a long and open route. But that route did not exist. At the key point, at mile 15, she passed through what is known as Failure Zone D, an area where a major landslide has been recorded since 2004. There is no trail, no passage, and according to official documentation, walking is impossible. Rocky ground, steep drops, thickets. It is for this reason that 2P was removed from the routes. But Amy had a sketch in her notebook on a piece of tear-off paper. D junction, rock on the right. Straight ahead is a tree, cliff on the left. Walk along the routes. This view only opens up from inside the zone, so she really was there, passed through, and she didn't fall. A forest officer involved in the initial assessment said, "We didn't understand how she got there, and most importantly, how she got out. Satellite images from the last few months show that no one has ever been there. No trails, no fires, no trash. Total isolation." When asked how she got her bearings, she replied, "There were signs, but not straight. Stones lying like arrows. Once, a cut in the bark. Further, a mark that looked like paint. I thought it was for us." An inspection of these places did not confirm the presence of paint, marks, or cuts. But the traces of her movement coincide with a direction that could be called a logical detour. It seems to repeat the old path, but goes a little higher around the rubble. However, this route is not marked anywhere. It is not recorded on any map, and no one knew it. When she reached the intersection with the fire road, the searchers began to understand. Amy was most likely following a non-existent route, but she was doing it with confidence. She did not loop. She did not turn back. Her path is integral, directed, confident. On the fourth day, when she was found, she had about a third of her water and half of an energy bar left. According to doctors, she was not hungry, was not wet, and did not spend the night in the open wind. She chose shelters stone canopies, hollows. Rationally, Officer Carl Bailey noted, "It wasn't a random exit, it was like she knew where to go. Only the route she took, no one else knew. The only thing she said about the last night was, 'I knew the trail was wrong when it went up again, and then it just ended.'" When Amy Robertson was brought to headquarters, she was given the opportunity to rest and recover. Later, as part of protocol, officers inspected her personal belongings. Among them was a standard Samsung SCHU 340 push-button phone, not a smartphone, but with the ability to record short audio files. The device had one file in its memory, 29 seconds long. The timestamp was March 9th, 1843, that is, the evening of the first day after release. The recording contains rustle. "If there was a turn here, then I didn't pass. There was a line. There should have been. But now it's up again, not down, like then. I checked the signs." After a pause, he adds, "I'll go down tomorrow. If I see a cut, I'll come back. If not, I'll go out on the left edge." The word cut in park terminology means an informal, unregistered bypass, sometimes used for emergency exits. But in this zone, such cuts do not officially exist. Experts who analyzed the recording noted two important details. The voice is stable. There is no sign of panic. Amy is not confused, not at a loss. She is drawing conclusions and planning. She relies on signs. She claims that she checked them, although in the area where she was located, there had been no signs since 2005. Later, when asked directly whether she had seen any real signs, she replied, "They weren't signs, rocks, branches, like the way rangers sometimes do before a storm. Temporary markers, only they were faded, but I saw them fall." This practice was indeed used, but not in this park, and not in the last 8 years. When two experienced instructors listened to the audio recording, they agreed. Amy was not following the modern route, but rather visual signs, old and unofficial ones, as if someone had walked the same line before her and left traces that were not recorded by the system. When asked why she turned on the recording, Amy replied, "Not for others, so that in the morning I can remember what the logic was, so that if I suddenly get scared, I have a reason." One navigation expert later said, "People in stress disorientation often don't talk like that. They doubt, worry, change direction." And she wrote down a plan. A strange one, but a plan. This recording is the only rational explanation for how she survived. But it doesn't answer the main question. Why did this route lead her to a place where there was no longer a path? The map fragment found on Amy was faded, torn at the edges, folded twice along the crease. On the front was an old route grid with pencil marks, curved lines, arrows, detour, and X, no descent possible markings. But it was the reverse side that attracted the most attention. There, on the gray field where official notes are usually placed, someone had carefully written by hand, 2P down if you don't want to go back. Holds on the left slope. Black branches. Don't touch. If there's wind, under the tree. Handwriting experts confirmed it is not Amy's handwriting, and it does not match the handwriting of anyone from the team that worked with her. The paper is an archive copy from 2000. Such maps should not be in the park. When asked where she found this leaf, Amy said, "It was between the stones, folded. I opened it because there was a line. I thought it was a mark." She later clarified, "The stroke is a short line of red marker on the outside, like a landmark." At the same point, other search participants later found an old plastic shell from a felt-tip pen. It was all burnt out, but the marker was red. Namely, until 2003, the directions of detours were marked in red when routes were closed. Back then it was done manually, and instructions were often passed on the spot from ranger to ranger. But the system has since gone digital, and no document indicates that anyone in 2009 had the right to use a 2P card. Two possibilities arise. The sheet was left by someone earlier, by accident, or purposefully, for those who are still going. But who could have done this is unknown. Route 2P was removed on the fly 5 years before the events, and according to the documents, the last pass along, it was in 2004, during an emergency training. After that, report on the slide, ban. Amy couldn't have known about the black branches. This is a local feature of the collapse zone, where the soot from the previous fire remained only on the northern side. But she knew, and it passed. When the map was checked against the light, a pencil-scratched text was found under one layer of paper. The handwriting was illegible. Only one word was clearly readable. Back. When the investigation was completed, the conclusion was simple. Amy Robertson had taken a route that officially did not exist, survived without communication, without an overnight stay, without an escort, and returned. None of these without sounds critical until you put everything together, which line exactly she took. The route, reconstructed using GPS tracks, shoe prints, and indirect landmarks, coincides with the 2P trail, which was removed from the register back in 2004. Not partially, not approximately, almost exactly, with a deviation of no more than 200 feet along its entire length. But this line is not on the modern map, and Amy could not have it. When she recovered, she was interviewed in detail. When asked how she knew where to go, she replied, "I didn't know. I just walked as if I'd already been there, in places I remembered." To the repeated question of how she navigated if there were no marks, they were there, but not signs. Tree corners, cuts, stacked sticks, as if someone had already walked. Later, when they were retracing the route, the rangers found one such landmark: stones laid out in the shape of an arrow under a snag. Old, covered in moss. When they were carefully moved apart, one of them revealed a metal token with initials stamped on it, RS Pate 2002. According to the archives, this is the badge of Patrick Sloan, a trainee from the 2000 volunteer party. In 2002, he participated in a training session on the 2P route. There was bad weather then, and the group was evacuated through an old clearing. Officially, Patrick completed the program and left. His contacts were not updated. Called the last known number invalid, the letter was returned to the university where he studied. The addressee has left. When Amy was shown the token, she didn't recognize it, but she said, "I remember seeing Pat written on a tree once. Under the bark, I thought it was short for patrol." The ranger's final report ends with the phrase, "The traveler survived by following a route officially closed. She had no map of the line, yet she followed it with logic. The reasons and sources of navigation are not established." 2 months later, Route 2P was finally cleared. Stones were removed, snags were moved, GPS marks were rewritten, and a copy of the old map, the one with the inscription, "If you don't want to go back," was sent to the archive with the stamp, "Do not use in the field." But on its edge, already in the office, someone noticed another line, erased, with a simple pencil, almost indistinguishable. The line remained in the head, not on the map.